Dr. Arvind sir, you mentioned in your book the climate change, the impact of climate change as a non-traditional, security threat. So, as a expert in global politics, global security, how do you define that? How it's connected to the security threat?
See, climate change is having an impact on national security directly as well as through indirect pathways. Direct is that because we are seeing these extreme weather events, we are seeing floods, landslides, forest fires, and so on and so forth. This changes the terrain, the topography, the geography. Our military forces who are, say, located in difficult terrains, whether it's on the sea or on the borders or in the Himalayas or in difficult mountainous areas, a landslide leads to direct destruction of the infrastructure. So that's one way it happens. Then our military and our forces are also involved in a lot of relief and rescue work. So when natural calamities occur, they are getting involved. So more and more of their attention is now going there. So they have to change their way. They have to have more resources. So that is the another way that they. The third is climate change today is leading to energy transition. So there is a international focus on which sector consumes what kind of energy and what is the emission from that sector. So today, even in the military sector, the military consumes a lot of fossil fuels and so on. So there is this lot of discussion happening, how much is the emission of the military and how they should change, how they should become green in a way. So that's another way that climate change impacts. And we are also seeing climate change leads to a lot of instability, conflicts, climate refugees. And in fact, India is very vulnerable to climate refugees and climate migrations.
Also maybe political global pressure.
Yeah, that's what I'm coming to. So climate change is also a very intensely political issue. International discussions happen on how to mitigate climate change or adapt to climate change. So this involves issues of technology. This involves the issue of finance. And these are very, very difficult discussions. And unfortunately, the world is not seeing the results that are desired. We are probably at the threshold of crossing the 1.5 degree threshold for global warming. If that happens, all this impact of climate change will multiply and it will impact national security as well as development.
Yeah, the border security also, you mentioned the different terrains. So we are surrounded by the Indian Ocean.
On the borders, what are we seeing on the borders? We have, as I said, the Himalayas. Himalayas are a very young mountain system and they are already crumbling due to various reasons. We are seeing melting of glaciers. The glaciers and the lakes are formed. The lakes then burst and then downstream they create a lot of cloud bursts and floods and
a lot of challenges for those.
So this creates
yes,
and our forces are deployed there. Similarly, in the oceans, there is a coastal erosion that is taking place. The salt concentration in the density of the ocean, salinity as they call it, is also changing. That impacts the working of our naval forces. Then we are seeing that the whole the bases where these people are based, the navy, etc. There is a subsiding of many of these areas. So that infects the infrastructure.
You mentioned in the book the maritime matrix. India is still a global player because India control a vast area of maritime. So how you define that?
See, India faces a lot of maritime security issues. These range from the direct or indirect threats from adversaries, that is one way. The second is what is happening in the ocean spaces. For instance, there is illegal fishing that happens around our waters. That directly impacts the food security. We have to deal with that. We also see a lot of trafficking of contraband, like drugs, etc., of arms that happens through the oceans. which also, because the you remember the Mumbai terrorist attack,
Yes, yes.
the people came from the, so that's another big challenge that we face. Then we also have the issue of maritime boundaries, borders with our neighbors. Then we have the issues of deep water explorations. A lot of these countries are now going to deep water and looking at those resources. So there are many, many dimensions to maritime security, and these have to be incorporated in our maritime security, and which is a part of the overall national security.
Yeah, as this book is also relevant for global, not only the subject of Indian security, also the global security. Like China is capturing the South China Sea. We can't, fathom the concept of it. Why they are doing this? So in this aspect, how India is, maintaining its.
So that's really the question about the Indian Ocean. There are about more than 40 navies who are in the Indian Ocean. We are a central location in Indian Ocean. It is so very important for our national security. The day we lost control of Indian Ocean to the colonial powers, that day we started weakening up. So now we see so many navies are there. So we have to safeguard our borders. We have to make sure that India is not choked. A lot of our trade takes place through the Indian Ocean choke points. And these choke points are today carrying so much of energy and merchandise and so on. And many these choke points are surrounded by very unstable areas, like the Houthis in the Red Sea. They are very active and they are impacting your maritime shipping there. And Indian Navy has been involved in providing protection to the Indian flagged merchant ships to bring the merchandise. So you can see, the more unstable the maritime spaces become, more impact it will have on our prosperity and national security. So Indian Navy and Coast Guard have to be strong enough to make sure to deter these negative trends which are coming from both the state actors as well as non-state actors.
The aspect of the non-state actors. So could you please explain the impact of these non-state actors?
First, we need to understand what is the difference between a state actor and a non-state actor, right? So a state actor, obviously, in a hostile situation would be one country that is against us. So we know that this country is opposed to us. This country's army might take a hostile action against us. There might be a military offensive towards us. So we know who our enemy is, who our adversary is, what the army or their armed forces is, and how we should be able to tackle them. But the non-state actor is not really the nation. The non-state actor are terrorist groups, for example, right? Insurgent elements, separatist elements. They are not bound by laws and conventions that a state is governed by. There is no diplomatic initiative, for example. Now, if I have a dispute with a country, if India has a problem with a country, then there are mechanisms to resolve the problem. There are military options, there are diplomatic options, right? But when a non-state actor, let's say a terror group, decides to attack the country, then we don't have these avenues open to seek a solution. And it becomes worse when a non-state actor is backed by a state. We know several. Exactly. Yes, so there are several terrorist groups in Pakistan which are targeting us. Now they are all backed by the Pakistan state. So these non-state actors backed by a state power create a different kind of a challenge, and therefore the response to that challenge also has to be different from that of the response that one state will give to another in terms of conflicts.
So in traditional conflict, we know who the enemy is.
Exactly, and we know how to respond to that.
Insurgencies.
That's correct. But
the enemy we can't identify.
No, we can identify a non-state actor, but the approach to dealing with them will be different from that of dealing with a state actor. So therefore that is the challenge, and the approach has to be different. Now take Operation Sindoor, for example. Now Operation Sindoor was in response to the terrorist attack at Pahalgam, right? So therefore initially our response or our military offensive was directed at non-state assets. That is the terrorist camps where they were trained, where they were harbored, where they were financed, etc. It is only when Pakistan responded, the military of Pakistan responded to it, that we responded back, targeting their military assets. So here, this is what I was telling you, the complication of a non-state actor acting in tandem with a state actor. The response has to be very different. And therefore, people have analyzed that the Operation Sindoor was a unique response. We have, I do not remember, barring the Balakot and the Uri strike, which was very, very limited in proportion, we have never responded militarily to a terrorist strike.
Demography can be seen in two ways. Demography can be seen as a dividend, or it can be seen as liability. Today, in fact, we have a whole chapter on demography where we point out that demography is destiny. Demography is going to change the geopolitics and geoeconomics of the world over a long period, say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, or even 50 years. If you see the demographic changes which are taking place, the main change that you see is that there is now decline in the total fertility rate in various countries, in Europe, in Japan, in Russia, and even in India. So if the total fertility rate goes down, that means the population growth comes down. And now we are seeing many countries like Japan and Russia and even in Europe and even in China, we are seeing a net decline in population. By the end of 21st century, Japan's population will be half. Of Russia, the population will be half. Europe population will be half. I mean, various estimates are there. Which means the economic situation, the economic structures will change. And they are already experiencing acute shortages. That's why you send large number of people from India are going to these countries as laborers and skilled labor and so on and so forth. So demography will be a very big factor in the geopolitics and geoeconomics of the world. So demography will be very important. If you look at Prime Minister Modi's speech at the Red Fort on the Independence Day, he also mentioned the demographic changes which are taking place around the borders. Today, our borders are a lot of demographic change. The demographic balance has changed. The infiltration is happening, the demographic balance is changing, and that is leading to so many demographic issues. So, demography as a factor in national security is something that we are talking about. And if you look at it in a broader sense, every country in this world is impacted by demography.